right. So welcome to our YouTube audience as well. So as I just mentioned, this is our webinar number 4, Engaging Strategics, Laying the Groundwork for Future Collaborations. On our panel today, I'll have our panelists introduce themselves in just a moment. We are honored to have Astra Lam here, Head of New Business Development for Asia Pacific at Johnson & Johnson MedTech. Good morning, Astra. Astra is dialing in from Shanghai. She'll tell us a bit more about herself and her role. And we're fortunate to have Bruno Occupinti here as well. Good morning, Bruno, dialing in from Singapore. Bruno is the Chief Executive Officer at Curative, a MedTech Innovator APAC alum from 2024. Bruno will tell us about one of his strategic collaborations over the last year that I think could be of great interest to a number of our cohort companies on the call to learn more about. So that's a partnership with Roche Diagnostics, and I'll let Bruno talk more about that in just a moment. So without further ado, let's dive into the webinar itself. And before we go into the topic, let me turn to Astra first. I'll ask you to just briefly introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about what Johnson & Johnson MedTech does, what you do in the role of new business development, and if there are any key areas of strategic focus for you and the new business development team.
Thank you, Frederick. First of all, it's my honor to participate in this sessions and kind of have the opportunity to introduce ourselves and as well as the company. So my name is Astra, and I'm based in Shanghai. I've been in new business development space for many years, but fairly young with Johnson & Johnson. I joined Johnson & Johnson 2022, and I think this is my 4th year with the company. I'm new in healthcare, so I look forward to learning more about this industry from all of you. But I can certainly share some of my previous experience in the business development space. And so when I joined J&J, I had a focus on China. Only recently, I have been given the opportunity to expand my scope to include Asia Pacific. So I can in this session, I probably a lot of time I will probably speak from my experience in China, but look forward to kind of hearing from all of you about your point of view in Asia Pacific. And I'll focus in, because J&J has innovative medicine as well as medtech. I'm more on the medtech side, and well, I shouldn't say that. I focus only on the medtech side, and so from China point of view, localization is one of our key focus. As you know, like in China, the competition is very. It could be quite. Intensive, and so having a strong localization strategy is very important. So localization not only kind of have a very narrow focus on kind of making it in China, is also kind of innovating in China and partnering in China. So I'm more focused on kind of expanding the partnership and see if we can bring in more good products and innovative solutions to serve the patients.
Very helpful. Thank you, Astra, for that introduction. And Bruno, tell us a bit about yourself, what your company does, and maybe give us just an initial high-level teaser of your partnership with Roche Diagnostics, and then we'll dive into the details.
Okay, yeah, so Bruno Occupinti, CEO of Curative. So Curative is a Singapore-based startup specialized in cancer detection using artificial intelligence. So in a nutshell, we analyze the images from the biopsies, and with AI, we can detect the presence of the disease, we can grade it as well, and we provide this information to the pathologist to make a better decision faster and more accurately. That's in a nutshell what we do. Yes, so in terms of partnership, we signed a partnership with Roche Diagnostics back in 2024. It's a global partnership to go to market together. So in a nutshell, the AI that I was referring to is a very complementary to the slide scanner that Roche is bringing to market. So we combine the two together, and then we go to market and we sell and we engage into tenders and so on across the world now to basically provide digital pathology to healthcare institutions.
Thanks for that, Bruno. And although I know that I think there are several of our cohort companies on this webinar that are already in conversations with strategics about potential collaborations, I think Bruno's partnership with Roche, I think, is still an interesting one that we'll dive deeper into, and I think there are learnings there for all of us. So thanks to both of you for joining. Let me, well, maybe before we go into the questions, just to our webinar attendees, reminder again to queue up your questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll get to the questions at the top of the hour when we'll go into our closed door Q&A. So let me turn to Astra perhaps first, and it's really about the definition of a strategic partnership, because of course a multinational and a startup can collaborate in many different ways. The ultimate partnership is, I guess, is an outright acquisition, an M&A, but we'll talk a little bit about that. But there are so many other ways that a startup can work with a strategic. It can be just a minority investment, of course, but it can also be a clinical research collaboration. It can be a technology licensing or a distribution agreement. We'll have Bruno talk more about that as well. What are some of the types of collaborations that with Johnson & Johnson and smaller companies that you see in Asia Pacific and maybe more specifically in China? And are those types of collaborations, if for the different types of collaborations, do the startups need to engage with different departments within Johnson & Johnson? So distribution questions goes over to this team, and licensing questions is with a different team, and how does that work? And what are you observing in terms of types of partnerships?
I see. Thank you. So the type of partnership, it's just, I think you cover all, and we do all of the above. And I think it kind of boils down to the strategies in say in China or in countries like Japan or Korea, or in the region. And so depends. And also depends on like the space of the startup companies kind of position themselves. If let's say if it's a startup company, it's just kind of doing a Me Too product with some innovations like improvement in terms of performance, those we probably I would say like a partnership it focus on the distributions, like it probably would be that category. But if some of the startup is like having some very innovative solutions, I wouldn't rule out the possibilities that we will have like clinical research collaborations or technology licensings, those kind of partnership, because like we do want to kind of get into the very innovative technology like at the very early stage. And of course, like if the business has a very strong presence in the market already, like they have certain market share, and this is like a space that we want to get in, is a new space for J&J. I think an outright M&A will probably make more sense. So it really depends on like what you want to achieve, and with that you look for different kind of candidate or targets. And so I hope I answer to your first question. And the second question is like, what else, like who else that those company will need to work with. J&J is a large company with with very complex structures. I do have my sympathy to a lot of startup companies when they're dealing with J&J. Is actually is very, very tiring. So but this is exactly like my function helps to kind of be the not the gatekeeper, but be the focal person, the focal functions to kind of interact with them and help them to navigate finding the right person to kind of deal with the certain issues. So for instance, like, clinical research collaborations, and we'll probably, on one hand, we will kind of, for the new business development functions, we will help to kind of get the whatever necessary approval internally, and help them to kind of resolve any kind of legal issues. But we probably will have the medical affair or R&D folks to kind of work closely with the startup. They don't have to worry about, like, behind the scene, how that legal and financial needs to be resolved. We will help to kind of resolve that issues. They only have to kind of focus on dealing with the research folks and clinical folks to kind of define the scope and roles and responsibilities. I think that our functions is kind of doing a lot of those work and help to kind of prep our partner to how they should deal with J&J in the most efficient way.
That's helpful. So essentially, you become the one-stop shop. You're a startup that's looking for some sort of collaboration with J&J. They don't need to navigate the organization themselves. They can go to you and your team.
That's right.
That's great. And maybe Bruno, I'll throw that question to you as well. Was that how you worked with Roche Diagnostics as well? Was it single point of contact, or did you need to navigate the organization, and did it take you some time to find exactly who to speak to in the early days?
It took a while. To be honest, we were lucky nonetheless. I mean, to be honest, because we started talking to Roche to some extent, I think, back in 2021, 2022. But at that time, we didn't have really an anchor point inside the organization, so things really didn't move much. We reignited, I think, the conversation later, the end part of 2022, beginning of 2023. And I was actually fairly lucky because one of my ex-colleagues from Philips was actually in Roche Diagnostics. So the contact was established.
Okay, that helps.
And then a certain level of trust as well, as you can imagine. So it facilitated immensely the flow. And we found a few key people within Roche Diagnostics in APAC that really helped immensely to accelerate the process. Up to that point, things were really slow. Once we basically connected with the right people, clearly things accelerated quite well. It's not always, let's say, seamless. Nonetheless, I don't want to say that once we had the right point of contact, everything went super fast, and that's not the case, and it's never the case, obviously, because we had a period of time where it was fairly quiet on the discussion front, and we thought it will never go anywhere. But eventually, we started at the regional level in APAC. Then we got some traction in APAC. We got to demonstrate and to show that we had the capabilities. By that time, also, we were commercial. We had a number of clinical validations that we had executed well. So we were more mature by that time. So the company at that time was already 4 to 5 years old. So that's what helped to get the traction we needed at the regional level. And then once you got the regional level on board and then people really supporting you big time, then we graduated in a sense to the global level. And then the global level, you sort of restart, to be honest, because the whole process, you sort of repeat whatever you've done. You have to, you're not starting from scratch because you have your credentials from the region, but you sort of come back to square one plus, and then you have to prove again, show the same document, presentation, publications, the buy-in, the regulatory approval you could have got by then. All this stuff restarted to some extent. And then it took another nearly 7 months, I think, from that point onwards, if not 8 months, to get to, let's say, a signed agreement. And then eventually, before the announcement, you have to wait another few months because you need another set of documents. So it's a lengthy process, and that's the general feedback to anyone that is part of the court. And I was part in that court 1 year ago, so it's quite funny to be on that side of of the mic today. It takes a lot of time. And even once you got to the signing, it's not like you're done and everything will flow from them onwards. You have to start basically at that point in time. The credentials are done. You have a firm engagement on both sides, but then you have to basically prove that this signing, this engagement is beneficial to both. And then that can take sometimes a lot of efforts because you have to train, you have to onboard, and then you have to resell the company again to the whole organization. So it takes time.
Completely understand. But I think what I'm hearing is that if a startup is working with an organization that is where they don't have the luxury of a like Johnson and Johnson, a new business development contact point, then finding that local champion within the organization is critical, and doing this, I guess, relatively early on. Astra, I wanted to ask you at what stage typically does Johnson and Johnson begin conversations with startups? And if you were to put yourself in the shoes of a startup, when is the right time for a startup to contact J&J? Are there certain minimum achievements that that really are absolutely required, or is there a sweet spot perhaps for J&J? Maybe it's a regulatory approval, maybe it's a first in man, or do they have to show revenue? What's your perspective on stage of development when you have that first interaction?
Thank you. I think it's just kind of go back to your first question. Is like depends on your positions. It's like, for instance, like if you're doing something, just improvement from a fairly, I wouldn't say mature industry, like, but there's a lot of players, but your product may be like, have a improvement. It's not a new product, but it's an improved product improvement. For those company, I would think that it would be important for them to have a very strong clinical result, because otherwise you cannot justify why your product is better than the other and how you're going to win in the market.
Right.
So having a very strong clinical it's like usually when you start filing for the FDA or local regulatory, you require like a clinical data. Those are the time that you can start kind of making contact with us. And I think like Bruno has described this, it can be a very lengthy process internally to kind of evaluate the performance of your product. So if you at the earlier the better, but if you kind of contact us too early without any data, then it's like a 30 minutes meeting. It's like, okay, I will hear from you later. That kind of. So if you are in that space, I think clinical performance is very critical. And then like, if and you or better, like, you have your local regulatory approval, that then you have even a stronger position when it comes to negotiations. And if you start generating revenue, that's even a stronger position for you to kind of when it's just when it comes to negotiation for a better terms. So so the short answer to your question is like at any time, it's just like, it's just like you contact us is okay. If it's too early, then there may not necessarily a lot of things we can do, but more result you have, the stronger position you have to negotiate to have a better deal with us. That's my 2 cents.
That makes sense. So any time, but come prepared. And that's I guess is a no-brainer. That's helpful, Astra. Bruno, I wanted to ask you we spoke about this earlier, the why. Why does a startup company decide to approach a strategic? What is it that drives that decision? And is it a certain do you reach a certain stage in your development and you say, yes, now is a great time to go out and have a conversation with a Roche Diagnostics or with a Medtronic or with a Johnson and Johnson or whoever it may be?
Yeah, for us, I mean, the writing was very clear because we could see a lot of tenders combining the hardware and the AI coming out. So it was increasingly obvious that we needed to partner with a hardware player so we could go together. And then at that time as well, we knew that what we were bringing to the market was complementary to the offering. It was something that would help Roche as well differentiate themselves, and us, it was going to be a strong way to connect with all the large organizations in the world, because working alongside a company like Roche Diagnostics is immensely positive, because the cloud, the fame, the established organization help as well to frame us in a different way. We are no longer just a startup engaging in a healthcare institution. We are working alongside a giant, and then suddenly let's say our picture or the way we are perceived can change quite dramatically.
It builds instant credibility, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are recognized. It creates let's say a certain level of established perception, even if we are still a smaller player. I mean, in the big scheme of things, nothing fundamental has changed at that point in time. But the fact that you are alongside a very established organization that is well recognized, well established across the world, it helps you immensely. And also because at that point in time as well, we had done quite a lot of work to be clear. We had done a lot of clinical validations. We could hear also good feedback from pathologists, and that helped a lot, because even when we engaged down the line with the Roche team, and then we had, obviously, you know, when you go through the due diligence process, typically for us, we had a session where a number of pathologists invited by Roche came and then started assessing our solution. But because we had been in the market for some time, actually, coincidentally, one of the people in the room actually had worked with us in the past. They had already seen the solution before, and they had positive things to say about us. So that's the kind of things that helps, because you sort of have already certain level of presence. And when the large organization, the MNC, is trying to assess where you are, well, they sort of start asking around, and then they realize that the people in the market already, they know us. They have seen us before. They have tested us. And that made it a lot easier for us to establish trust with Roche Diagnostics. And then honestly, the thing that was probably the most instrumental, not that you always need to have it, but it simplifies everything. There was a deal. There was an opportunity that came out, and we could work together, and it was a perfect match. And suddenly, when you have a very concrete opportunity where the two organizations can clearly work together, it's a no-brainer. It
And
aligns
sorry, that's
everyone.
a deal. What you're referring to is a deal like a sales deal, a tender, or
a tender.
something.
Yeah, there was a tender at that time, and then that helped us align much faster, because
Yeah.
suddenly there was a direction. We knew where we are aiming for. So all the testing, all the due diligence process had been done by then, and then there was a lot of trust already. And then when the tender came out, well, it was very natural. And then we basically delivered on that first deal as well, so it was a success.
So you won that. You ended up winning that tender, presumably.
We did win that tender, but we closed that tender way after signing, just to be clear.
Okay.
But that sealed, in a sense, the engagement with the regional team.
Yeah.
And then after that, that's a sweet situation, because you sign and a few months later you close.
Right.
And that really strengthens immensely your partnership. So because suddenly it's very concrete, it's very obvious.
Yeah, of course. Very interesting, Bruno. Thanks for that. Asper, I wanted to ask you about startups engaging with strategics possibly too early. It's a question that we get very often from our participating cohort companies. Is there a risk? Is there a downside for a startup to have a conversation and start formal engagement with a strategic too early? And would that impact their ability to then speak to other strategics in the future? So, for example, if you were to if Johnson & Johnson was to have a conversation with a startup, and that startup already has some sort of partnership with one of J&J's competitors, would you view that startup differently? And what are some of your thoughts on that?
This is a very tough question. So okay, based on my experience, I think, if a startup engage a strategic partner too early, it uh it's a double-edged sword. It's just cut both way because
Yeah,
you will certainly limit your choice of partnering with other strategic partner. And then I like to use and I like to use this example is like ham and egg sandwich. Like, the not the ham and egg sandwich, the breakfast with ham and egg. Egg is like, chicken lay an egg and the chicken won't die, but the pig is, for their sausage, for the ham, they suddenly have to die. um
yeah,
when you have when you engage too early, and you usually you will run into a risk. You can that your destiny kind of like, rest with
yeah.
the only strategic partner. And because like Johnson and Johnson, if we want to form a strategic partnership with you and pour in our resources, we will usually want to have like some kind of exclusive, not exclusive right, but at least like we want to have the advantage about above other above other competitors. So I mean, I don't think I don't think this is just J&J. I think it applies to a lot of other bigger MNC company. So yes, I would think that some if you want to engage with strategic partner, you have to think very, very carefully. Um, of
It's a great point, and maybe I'll just stay with that thought for a second because would I can see this as being clearly a case where if one of your competitor already owns a minority stake in the company, that might be a big no-no. But if it's a relatively minor um, clinical research collaboration on a more peripheral product line that's not maybe the core of Johnson and Johnson's interest, would it still be a I guess my question is would there be types of partnerships that you would be more comfortable working with a startup when there is an existing relationship with another strategic? Or would you say that across the board, doesn't matter what that type of partnership looks like, um, you'd really prefer to start with a blank sheet?
Okay, so first of all, like I like to make a point that, it's not like Johnson and Johnson has not partnered with any company that 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 has also other partnership with our
Good point. Yeah,
competitor.
yeah,
It depends, like, because for instance, if our competitors venture capital arm, but invested to this small startup, we consider that is okay
yeah,
because, like, this is the we should have some firewall, and we should believe they have some kind of guideline. And so for that kind of arrangement, that's okay, and we have done that. But if you're talking about, like, R&D partnership, licensing, or even clinical research, those kind of things, as so long as it kind of deals with IP, I think
Mm,
that is
mm.
very tough. That is very hard.
Got it. Yeah,
Um, yeah, I I wouldn't say never, but it's like, people, if let's say if the company kind of first start with us and then they jump to another company, let's say our big competitors, people will ask, like, they will ask why,
right.
if you are so successful, why didn't you stay along with J&J?
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
how that question to be answered, I don't know. I just, like, theoretically it could, but it's just like practically I think it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and it is a challenge, and as you said earlier, it's a double-edged sword. but it's something that's very often top of mind for startup founders. And let's have Bruno's perspective maybe on this as well. Where you, I assume there's a degree of exclusivity in the arrangement that you have with Roche Diagnostics. And of course, now everything's working out really well. It seems you can tell us a bit about that. But does that, your current relationship with Roche Diagnostics, is that completely precluding you from sometime in the future potentially partnering with one of Roche's competitors? Would that be a big issue and a big no-no?
So I guess in our space, it's a bit peculiar because there is clearly no exclusivity arrangement. For good reason, in fact, because typically the scanner manufacturers, they have to connect with many healthcare institutions, and they have a very wide range of cancer detection needs. And you don't have really one AI player that can provide all the AI tools that are required to analyze all these different types. So typically, Roche partners with a number of AI providers. We are one of them. There are others. So they are non-exclusive with us. And similarly, we work with other slide scanner manufacturers, depending on the context, depending on the environment, the price sensitivity of certain players we engage with. So it's for us, it has absolutely no importance whatsoever because it's really about the go-to-market. So there is no, as Astra said, if there is IP involved, then you certainly have to protect. You need to lock to some extent the engagement. For us, there is no IP related matters. In fact, it's all about go-to-market, and then on certain deals we partner together, and some other deals we might compete. It's a very natural process, and that's the way it works in the world of digital pathology, at least for now.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about outreach and how the startups engage with strategics initially. And Astra, when you see startups approaching Johnson & Johnson, what are some of the common mistakes that you see those startups perhaps make when they make that initial contact? And what can startups do to maybe avoid them?
I think okay, first of all, I have seen the startups that's kind of making contact with with our company in two ways. One is like, through the investor, they kind of reach out to Johnson & Johnson and see if we are interested to partner or invest. That's one way. Or the other one is probably in some of the exhibition or conference, talking to one of our business marketing folks and kind of introduce their product and kind of and then through them and kind of connect with us. That's usually kind of going with this two channel. And I the mistake, I wouldn't say mistake, I think is I guess is the expectations. There's because there's no mistake, like we just kind of meet each other, kind of introduce each other. I don't think there's any mistake. It's just like a lot of time people will have some expectations that after this meeting, something is going to happen.
Right.
And so I think things will only happen if they have a very strong selling point. Like in the previous questions, is like if you have just a PPT or if you have just a concept, it's very hard for us to kind of react. It's like okay, like what should I do next? But if you have very strong evidence that to prove your product is indeed better or faster or cheaper, then there is something that we can kind of work on as the next step. So I guess this is what I have seen. Like sometimes startup comes in and they get disappointed that they didn't hear from us. I think part of the reason is because like the value that you are selling is not very obvious.
Got it. That's a good point. And another way maybe of asking the same question is what really gets your attention when you first speak to a startup company? What are the qualities that you look for in that first meeting with a startup that you've made contact with? What makes that initial approach maybe more productive or more successful, and the specific qualities that you might look for in that first company? Sorry, that was a question for Astra. Just staying with you.
Sorry, I kind of spaced out. I thought you were asking Bruno.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I thought I would
So,
just stay with you for that. So
okay.
it was the same question, but from a slightly different angle.
Mhm.
What specifically are some of J&J's, what are some of the qualities that you look for in a startup that approaches J&J?
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah.
So I kind of going look back, and for the deals that we have signed in the last couple of years, I it's what usually make it successful is when you have a very clear strategies, like and the role the role you're playing in this partnership. For instance, like I know there's a lot of startup, they want to do everything they want because they want to kind of show to their financial investor that they have a capability of doing everything. But in reality, it's true. Like if you want to go IPO, of course you want to kind of promote a position that you have a very complete capability from a capability point of view. However, when you are at the early startup stage and when you are still kind of wanted to kind of have a position in the market, you may have to sacrifice. You may have to kind of sacrifice your commercial capabilities and focus more on the product performance as well as R&D. So if the founder will have to know exactly at what stage what's your focus, and try not to want to do everything at the same time. Otherwise the negotiation is going to be very difficult, and it's also very hard for us to kind of just make it very hard in terms of the partner the integration of the partnership. And because like a lot of time we will, for instance, if a company also wanted to participate in the commercial activities, at the early stage, it will be very hard for J&J to kind of commit 100% and try to drive the commercial activities with J&J methodologies. It's just hard to kind of combine two together when the culture or doing business way of doing business is so different. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, Astra. Thanks for that. And Bruno, turning to you, I wanted to maybe get your sense of how you made that initial connection with Roche Diagnostics. You mentioned you already had a relationship with an individual within the organization, and that obviously helped. Was that all there was to it, or did you have to go further in terms of building additional relationships very quickly? And how did you prepare for some of those first interactions and first presentations in the early part of your conversations with the company?
Yeah, so in our case, we had this disadvantage to know someone inside, and that person on top of that happened to be in the field of where I operate. So it did help quite a lot. If this is not the case, what I strongly encourage the cohort CEOs is to find a way to get the name of the person that is in your domain of expertise, because if you have already an entry point inside the organization, it's a lot easier for that person to reach out to the one that can actually help you. Because at the end of the day, of course, we had this first entry point, and that really unlocked the dialogue. It enabled the meeting to take place. But that's the very, very beginning of the journey. There is a lot more taking place afterwards. You have a lot more stakeholders involved in the process. We were lucky that there were two people in particular in APAC, two to three people, in fact, that were really supportive, I would say, and then that really helped us to go over a number of hurdles and then unlock access to the right people in the organization in different parts of Roche, not only in the region, but also overseas as well at the global level. So how we get prepared, I mean, you do have all your classic pitch and commercial documents, but that's clearly not enough. Typically, you want to go into the conversation with some sort of an idea of what we could really do together. You don't want to blank slate. You basically want to say, listen, I think I know some of your expectations and where you are at this point in time in the industry, and this is how I could help. And then it's not meant to be a sealed kind of scenario about what you can do for them, but it's just to open the dialogue. And then the people that you have in the organizations that are supporting you will bring the right people around the table to continue that dialogue and build up something more meaningful, more thorough about what we could do together. And then gradually by iteration, you get to something a bit more solid that can after that be escalated to the global organization. And by then, you know typically what resonates, what doesn't. By then, they have already tested you. They have validated your clinical validations, the publications you've done. They have talked to a number of pathologists. You have demoed the solution a number of times. That's another aspect as well. In your case, we didn't go there with just slides. We had the software. We could demo live the product.
Okay.
So that made it a lot more concrete, a lot more real. And then we had done a couple of deployment as well. So not that many, but we had a few. So we knew what it would take, not just to pitch and convince, but also what sort of hurdles they will face as well with us. And then they understood that we knew what it would take to some extent to go into the market together. So that made it possible. And honestly, you need a certain level of luck. Let's face it. You need a certain stars alignment to happen, because otherwise, honestly, it could have died a million times along the way. Another piece of in the puzzle is that you need internal champions, or in our case, we had internal champions, in fact, that are willing to go the extra mile for you, that can see the value that you bring to their own targets, because you need to align with their own targets, with the strategy of the region and so on. Because as Astra said as well, I mean, you need to have your own clear strategy, but it needs to align with the strategy of your partner, because otherwise you're out. So all of that really made it possible, and that helped us to go gradually from the region to the global, and eventually to a signed agreement. But at the end of the day, also, especially for startup, it's all about the runway. I mean, you need to be able to last long enough in the fight to be still up when it happens. And because the perception of time is completely different on the MNC side than it is on the startup. When you lose a couple of months in an MNC to get a meeting done, it's not a big deal, because it's basically normal, because people are busy, they have many other things, and you're just a small startup. What can you expect? But a startup having to wait 2 to 3 months for the meeting, it's a huge amount of time. So you have to have enough bandwidth when you go into, and that's something you have to think about if you want to go the strategic path. You cannot completely neglect all the other aspects of your business, because you're betting everything on the agreement to materialize. Because after that, suddenly you expect things to move really fast. That's not realistic. So you have to have enough runway, enough of a larger team as well to support you to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to happen fast enough for you.
That's a great point, Bruno. And I think it's easily overlooked, especially if there is some sort of a cash payout component at the beginning, potentially of a relationship with a strategic. And that is a critical element in your short-term cash flow planning. And then obviously there's always a risk that a startup can stand and fall with the timing of that strategic relationship. Astra, I wanted to turn to you and ask if from your perspective, we spoke about timing, and Startups may approach you, and it may not necessarily be the right time for them to engage with J&J. You tell them that they need to do some more homework. You ask for some additional evidence or some additional milestones. What's the best way for a startup to stay engaged with Johnson and Johnson during this period of time? If you have an initial conversation and you realize that, well, they really need to hit a milestone, which might be 6 months or 12 months away, would you like to stay in touch? Would you like the startup to stay in touch with you during this period of time? How
Mm.
can they stay on your radar without being a nuisance, I guess would be my question.
Okay, thank you. So I like to say that, let's say after the first meeting, and then we both parties kind of very specific to kind of lay out what are the milestones and the action items needs to be achieved before the next engagement. I think that would be the type of meetings that I would hope to end with. So if both parties knows exactly what they have to do, I think it's just according to that action items and kind of approach us. I think that would be probably the most effective way, because keeping like conversation, like meetings, those has costs,
Mm,
because
absolutely.
yeah, time costs, and emotional costs, because like if you come to a meeting, or you kind of engage for the sake of engaging, it kind of, it may not help, it may hurt.
Yeah,
So I
good
would
point.
imagine that, if I would suggest to all companies, or myself or my team member, that every time we have a meeting, we know exactly what's next, and be very specific, and that would be the best way to kind of stay to keep track. And I will encourage anyone to, like, after the meeting, kind of send out an email to everyone, kind of laying that out, and that way we have something hold on to. It's like, look, you asked me to do XYZ, and this is what we have done, and let's talk again. And
Good. Yeah,
that is usually my
that
approach.
that makes sense. That's very helpful, helpful guidance, Astra. Thanks for that. So Astra, just staying with you, I wanted to switch. We have about 10 minutes left or so. I want to talk just very briefly before we wrap up about M&A. Of course, Johnson and Johnson, and we're not going to talk about the large acquisitions that
Mm,
J&J does, but just to sort of set the stage for people who are on the webinar here. If I'm not mistaken, J&J have spent about $30 billion on acquisitions, mostly in the cardiovascular business over the last few years. Biomed, Shockwave, Laminar, V-Wave. There have been a number of very, very large acquisitions. But of course, the focus of our conversation today is the smaller companies, and those are the ones typically that maybe fall below the radar, or they don't necessarily get publicized. So Astra, at what stage typically would a Johnson and Johnson look to potentially acquire a smaller company? Would you do that at a preclinical stage? Would they have to have done their pivotal studies? Would you only consider them post-regulatory approval, or would they need to generate revenue, or does that depend?
I think it depends. I would say that it- if it really depends. Like, if, let's say, I would imagine, if it's a new space, if it's a new space for Johnson and Johnson, I think it would be probably more practical and viable to acquire a company that has a more mature business.
Mm,
And because I think the chance, from an integration point of view, or the work afterwards, the chances of success, I think it will be higher. Just imagine if it is a new space, meaning that we have very little footprint or experience in this space. If you acquire a company that at the very early stage, I wouldn't have the capability to bring up the business, because it's a new space. So it will be very natural to acquire a company that has all the arms and legs,
Right.
so that they can run on its own. But if it's an existing business, if something that we have, but it has a very niche technology, and this technology has proven to be the future directions, I think that is an area that we probably will be interested of acquiring at early stage, even like preclinical, because this is a space that we know very well, and we know this is like perhaps a very niche technology that we know how to kind of commercialize it. I think that is only if I have a very strong foundation. And but in Asia Pacific, I'm new to this Asia Pacific role, but in China at least, I think we probably want to take a safer approach by partner first and then acquire, because the regulatory, the policy changes so quickly, the market changing so quickly. I think we don't know what we don't know. So it would be important for us to kind of partner first, test the water, to kind of to understand what value that each party bring onto the table, and then if that proven to be successful, then acquisition become a possibility.
That makes a lot of sense, and I guess it would facilitate the future due diligence if you already have an existing relationship.
Yep.
Completely understand. Bruno, I'd welcome your perspectives on this, and I don't know to what extent Curative has already started to plan for a potential future trade sale exit, and is that something you would? Is it something you're thinking about? Is it something you would encourage other startups to think about, or is there a risk that that just becomes a big distraction and you should really focus on scaling the business?
I don't think it's a distraction, to be honest. We have to deal with fundraising. M&A is just another activity that may not have direct link to the commercial engagement, obviously, but it's essential. In fact, investors as well at times ask you, what's your exit plan from a very early stage? So you need to think about that M&A option from the very beginning. In our case, we definitely think about it. It makes sense, simply because of the nature of the business we are in. If we were to be, let's say, added to another organization, a larger one, it could very much complement what they are doing. It will reinforce what we bring to the market collectively. It will reinforce the integration part, the architecture aspects, and all of that. So for many reasons, in the world of digital pathology, at the very least, it's a very natural thinking to consider M&A as an option, especially for the AI providers that we are. Also because it will unlock immense potential for the clinicians and for the patients at the end of the day. So for many reasons, M&A makes a lot of sense, and we are also exploring that activity as well. And then obviously we have to balance things as always between the commercial angles, fundraising as well, and then the M&A side, because obviously you have to run all those races at the same time. So which is quite hard sometimes for any CEOs and the team. But yeah, it's a very much something we have to do, and we are working on it. Yeah.
Got it. Very helpful. I'm realizing we probably only have about 5 minutes left. We have a lot of questions that have been queued up from our participating cohort companies. And again, if you're listening in on this, if you have questions, please queue them up using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those in about 4 or 5 minutes. I think at this point I'll probably ask a closing question, and maybe each of you, and I'll start with Astra, for any general advice that you would give any of the medtech startups that are on this call, that are either they may have had initial contact with a strategic, or they're hesitant and perhaps planning to reach out to a strategic. What are some of your sort of last few pieces of advice and guidance to those founders and CEOs, Astra?
Okay, thank you. So my suggestion is to a very clear vision and strategies. It's like what your solutions is, what solution you are trying to serve, to 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 what value you're bringing, like what are clinical benefits that you are bringing to the market, to the table, and don't try to do everything. Don't try to do everything yourself. Be very focused, and because if you are not clear about yourself, it's very hard for other company or your potential partner to know how to partner with you. It's almost like a dance. Like if you don't know where you're going, it's very hard for me to kind of find a way to follow you or what kind of go together. I know it sounds very philosophical, but it is usually that the when we come across a staff, they try to do many things, and then in our point of view, we feel that this is practically impossible, and we don't know, and we feel, and then we lost the trust, we lost the confidence, and then we will probably shy away. Yeah. So my 2 cents is to be very focused.
Very helpful, Astra. Thank you for those words. Great guidance there. And Bruno, same question to you, but of course from your perspective, advice to the startups that are now on the call, in terms of their outreach to strategics, current or future.
Just to clarify, Frederick, you mean in terms of the engagement itself at the early phase?
In terms of any advice in terms of either how they could, at what stage they can reach out, how they could reach out, how to be better prepared in that outreach, what to look out for, maybe making sure that they have that local champion early on, follow-up activities. We've spoken about a lot of things, but maybe the top 2 or 3 priorities that you would maybe recommend a startup founder focus on when they have that initial interaction with the strategic.
Yeah, I think obviously you need some sort of alignment and so on. So you need to have done some homework about who you're meeting, and I guess that's a given that most of us, when we engage with any strategics, we try to understand as much as possible on what we are going to do with that particular organization. So that's very critical to have an intelligent dialogue about what we could do together. What is sometimes a bit neglected, but and honestly, I've not done much of that, but I based on the other programs we have attended afterwards, they highlighted that aspect. It's very important also to know who you're meeting on that day. The people that you are going to have on the other side of the table, because they have maybe a very unique agenda or a unique background. And you have to, before you go into the conversation with them, you need to have done some homework about them as well, to know where, I mean, things are where they went to school, which company they work for. You might actually realize you know the person before. You may have worked, maybe not with that person in particular, but work with people that know that person as well.
Good point.
Just to create a contact, a human contact as well. Because at the end of the day, of course, there is alignment of strategy. There is a lot of practical aspects. You need to be ready commercially. You need to have a product that has been proven to some extent. I mean, there are a number of basic hygiene factors. But if the person on the other side of the table doesn't connect with you for any reason, it will not go anywhere. As much as you are totally relevant, that will not fly, and that might actually stop very soon. So you have to build that connection. Because also it's a long-term engagement, and that person will actually represent you internally down the line, and that person will put his or her reputation as well on the line because of you. So you have to make sure that the person can trust you, and you have to show that the person can trust that you're going to do what you have said that you will be willing to do, that whatever you claim you have done, that you have actually delivered on that, and then it's proven. because that's a fundamental aspect. Once you've got this trust with that person or this group of people, then you can build something that is sustainable, that is going to resist the pressure that is going to happen in the organization. Also, bear with me when I say the person is important, but also the group. Why I'm saying that? Because MNCs are very fluid these days. People move in and out, and then the person you're dealing with today may not be there the next day. So you have to have not just one champion, but sometimes several inside the organization, so that this can resist the test of time and then the reorg of all the large MNCs, and we see many of them taking place. The last point I would say is that even if you think you've done the work when you sign the agreement, my point is that it's not. It is really the very, very beginning. You need to put a lot of effort, a lot of time in the onboarding of your partner. You need to make sure that you have all the training materials ready, all the paperwork, the videos, the pitches, because you want to teach them how to sell your own solution or be better at explaining what your solution does. So you need to think about along this line, because very often, you in your head, the finishing line is, oh, I've got the partnership signed and that's it, I'm done, and after that things will take off. And that's absolutely, absolutely not the case. Once you sign the partnership, then things start. And then you have to work with this organization, and you have to jointly be more efficient and grow the business together. And that's where the onboarding process that needs to take place. And you need to dedicate enough time and resources to make it successful, because it will take months. And that's something that we often neglect when we go into that process, especially because we get tired by the end of the process. By the time we sign, we've spent so many months. We want results to happen immediately. But the sad reality is that it takes time. And we need to keep enough momentum, enough energy in the tank to go the extra mile and prepare for what really matters afterwards, is to be successful together.
Outstanding advice. Thank you, Bruno, for all of that. There were a number of things there that I picked up, and I encourage our cohort companies to watch the recording and play back some of the advice that you've been receiving here today. I think the point about relationships, and ultimately this is it's people doing business, and therefore building that relationship, having multiple touch points within an organization. Some terrific advice here. I'm afraid that's probably all we're going to have time for our YouTube audience. So for Astra and Bruno, don't hang up. We're going to Q&A in just a moment. Thank you both so much for being part of this panel. Great conversation. Thank you to those of you joining us on YouTube. We'll be back in 2 weeks, I believe, from now. And do go to the MedTech Innovator Asia website for YouTube recordings, past and current.